first time in a TBR video in 2026, I'm going into recording not knowing exactly which books are going to come up. Now I'll explain more about this in just a moment, but first I kind of want to recap where we're at with the end of March and March's TBR. So because I'm recording this video a few days ahead of the end of the month, just because weekends work best for me in terms of recording time, I don't actually know where I'm going to finish the month in terms of what my current reads are and whether I complete the TBR. Now, as it stands, it's looking very likely that I won't, and also that I might just quite not get to the end of the 2026 Winter Goodreads Challenge. Now, I'm obviously going to do my best between now and then to pick up what I can, but as it stands, I'm partway through 1984, which doesn't qualify, but it's a companion book I want to read with Julia, which does. I also have Looking at Women, Looking at War, and A Study in Scarlet Women to pick up for the challenge alone. But not only that, I also have a reading obligation to review a book called Storm of Mercia on the 2nd of April. So obviously that's having to take priority right now. So it's looking very likely I won't get there, but what I'll do to give you an idea of what books I'm initially carrying forward into April, I'm going to include this overlay here. Not only that, but I also have my companion read-along of the Throne of Glass series, and unfortunately I have yet to even start Crowd of Midnight, so I'll be carrying this one forward and making that our April read instead. So I'll be extending this for other people who've been reading along with me. I will catch up in April. I'm sorry guys. But anyway, on to my April TBR. Now, how do I not know what's going to come up? Well, the interesting answer to that is I have a very old TBR jar that I haven't picked up in a while, and I think it would be a fun way to get to some of the older reads on my list. Now, I confess, I haven't refreshed the books in this jar for some time. I haven't actually recorded a video or done anything with this for quite a while. So it's likely to help me get to some of the older books on my reading list. However, I'm also likely to pull out something I've since read kind of naturally, so bear with me on this one. Now I'm going to pull, I think, 3, maybe 4 books out of this jar, because I always like to have a tough target to kind of meet, and that means I'll have plenty of books on my April reading list, so then I can enjoy these, read a little bit organically, see what the next kind of Goodreads challenge looks like, and then maybe I can start planning some of my reads for May onwards. But anyway, let's get on to picking books out of the jar. So here is book number 1. Now I haven't, I dropped one. I'm not looking. I haven't given these a mix or anything before I pick this up, which is obviously why I'm doing this now. And then what I'm going to do is have a little bit of a rifle. I have something there. Is that just one? I think that's just one. Okay, and this is 50 things you need to know about British history. Okay, I haven't read this one yet. I do like me a history. In fact, I'm reading a historical fiction at the moment, Storm of Mercia, for my review coming up on Thursday. So history is always good. Non-fiction also a win. I'm picking up more non-fiction now than kind of I ever have before, and doing it naturally. So a bit of a kind of a fun thing with this is I never really used to pick up much non-fiction, but I set myself a challenge a few years ago to, I think it was to read 15 non-fiction, but it worked out kind of as like a quarter of my reading being non-fiction. And now, because I was reading it because of that, I was naturally finding books that, you know, I quite liked the sound of. So it's now much more a reading habit to pick up non-fiction anyway. So we have 50 things you need to know about British history. I'll tell you more about that book in just a minute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick all my books, and then I'm going to go and see if I've got copies of them already, or if not, I will bring up the synopsis so I can tell you a little bit more about each of these. But anyway, on to book number 2. Again, I'm going to give this a mix, and I dug for the last one. I'm not going to dig too hard for the second one. Oh, I also dropped one, but I'm going to pick this one, which is, ooh, Bag of Bones, Stephen King. Okay, just going to hold this up to the camera. I appreciate it's a bit blurry and my handwriting is very small, so apologies for that. I'm actually excited. I haven't picked up a Stephen King book for a little while, and it's quite different in terms of genre to what I've been picking up lately, so this could be an exciting pick. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm also, just on camera, I'm going to recover a piece of paper I dropped here. I'm going to pop that back in the jar, okay? So let's go for book number 3 pick, and then we'll see what comes out next. I'm surprised actually I've not pulled one out already that I've already read. And now I've probably just jinxed myself here. But I thought I probably would have read more of these given it's been a while since I picked these up. Okay, it's another non-fiction. It's very different. This one is Freakonomics. So probably an interesting read given everything that's going on topically at the moment and all the jazz that's going on in the world. So that could be kind of topical as well as interesting. So that's book number 3. I'll go for one more. I'll be cheeky. I'll go for 4. I was undecided as to whether to go for 3 or 4. But yeah, I'll push myself. And obviously, if I do get through all of these, like I can just mood read for the rest of the month, or whatever. Like I always have this thing about like setting myself lists and whatever, but like I can just do what I want. Like it's my life. Okay, is this one? This is one. Okay, it's got a long title by the size of the piece of paper. Okay, no, it hasn't. I've just put it on a big piece of paper. This one is Onyx and Ivory. So I think this one might be a fantasy book. But yeah, that's interesting. Like I had kind of forgotten this was on my reading list, but I'm sure once I kind of reread the synopsis, I'll be 100% on board with why I've added this one. So I have a bit of a mix. I've got 2 non-fictions, one about economics and one about history. I've got Bag of Bones by Stephen King, which is going to be some kind of horror, thriller kind of thing. And then Onyx and Ivory, like I say, I strongly suspect is a fantasy. So pretty good mix for my reading list and taste as things go. So pretty representative. Now I'll go take a look and see if I've got any of the books in question, or if I will be getting them via Audible or borrowing them from the library even, and I will come back to you with some synopses and to give you a little bit more of my initial thoughts about these books. Okay, so having taken a look both upstairs at my physical library feels like a very strong word, but my bookshelves, and also what I have potentially got in digital copies, it so far looks like I've only got a digital copy of Stephen King's Bag of Bones. So let's go take a look if any of those remaining books are available at my library. Fingers crossed. Okay, so there is one book I can get hold of through the library, and that is I can borrow a physical copy of Freakonomics. So that's good news. What I'll do is I'll take that out nearer the time, and then I'm not in the predicament I am now, where I have a library loan due tomorrow and I haven't picked up a book. Don't worry, I've extended it. Like I can at least do that online. So now, thankfully, Looking at Women, Looking at War is now not due until about the 27th of April, but hopefully I can return it a lot sooner than that. So that's what I get for being too keen. But there we go. So now let's get into the actual details about these books, and I'll go through the synopsis and I'll share with you why I'm excited to pick these up. So let's start with the order in which I drew the books. First, let's recap 50 things you need to know about British history. What are the 50 key events you need to understand to grasp British history? If you could choose the 50 things that define British history, events of significance not only in themselves, but in their importance to wider themes running through our past, what would they be? Hugh Williams has made that selection, and the result is a fascinating overview of Britain's past. He refines British history into a series of key themes that represent a crucial strand in our history, and pinpoints the seminal events within those strands. Roots: from the Roman invasion to Britain's entry into the common market. Fight, fight, and fight again. From the Battle of Agincourt to the Falklands War. The pursuit of liberty: from the Magna Carta through the Glorious Revolution to the foundation of the NHS. Home and abroad: from Sir Francis Drake and Clive of India to the arrival of SS Empire Windrush. And all change: from Chaucer and the English language to the invention of the web. With great clarity, simplicity, and a zest for the marvellous stories that underpin many of these events, Hugh Williams explains that the linkage between each one and its importance in the progress of British history as a whole. Along the way, he has some fascinating tales to tell, making this a highly enjoyable read, as well as a perceptive insight into our shared past, and vital for anyone who wants quickly and enjoyably to grasp the essential facts about British history. Now, this sounds quite interesting. It's obviously going to be quite a factual book, so I'm hoping there is some kind of interlaced humour or a bit of mirth to kind of lift the story from just pure fact. But we will see. I've obviously seen this book, and honestly, I don't keep track of where I see these things. Hopefully I have picked this up because I have read some really interesting reviews on this book. I'm hoping it has a little bit of humour kind of interspersed in there to help lift obviously what is going to be a very factual book. Either that, or even if it's just written very well, that will make it all the easier to read. Moving on to Bag of Bones, I'm going to say it's a good job I only pulled 4 books out of this jar, because Bag of Bones alone is 750 pages long. Wish me luck. So obviously that isn't going to change anything. I'm still challenging myself to pick up this book. But as we know, King does like to write his epics now and then, and this is clearly one of them. So, surprise! Now let me recap the synopsis of the book so you can get a feel for what I'm going to be picking up, and hopefully it gives us a little bit of hype for the book as well. And if you want to read along with me, then you can absolutely do so. When Mike Noonan's wife dies unexpectedly, the best-selling author suffers from writer's block, until he is drawn into his summer home, the beautiful lakeside retreat called Sarah Laughs. Here Mike finds the once familiar town in the tyrannical grip of millionaire Max Devore. Devore is hell-bent on getting custody of his deceased son's daughter and is twisting the fabric of the community to this purpose. 3-year-old Kira and her young mother turn to Mike for help, and Mike finds them increasingly irresistible. But there are other, more sinister forces at Sarah Laughs, and Kira can feel them too. Now, I think that write-up is pretty ambiguous, so honestly I have no idea kind of what I'm going into with this. That doesn't stop me from wanting to pick up the book either. Stephen King is pretty much kind of auto-buy, auto-read at this point. He is such a big author and well-known that it doesn't really matter. I'll give pretty much anything a go. So yeah, I'm going into this book with a quite open mind because I don't remember much of the book from what I've read about it, and clearly I've read stuff about it because I've added it to my TBR, but I do that a lot. I currently have a TBR of about 220 books, so there is not enough room in the noggin for all the stuffs. So this could be interesting, and hopefully it has a good enough pull that it makes the 750 pages fly. Thankfully, the next non-fiction book I pulled out of the TBR jar, which was Freakonomics, is significantly shorter, just coming in at under 300 pages. It's definitely a more approachable book in terms of its size, but let's take a look at its synopsis. Assume nothing, question everything. This is the message at the heart of Freakonomics. Levitt and Dubner's rule-breaking, iconoclastic book about crack dealers, cheating teachers, and bizarre baby names that turn everyone's view of the world upside down and became an international multi-million copy selling phenomenon. Asking provocative and profound questions about human motivation, Freakonomics will make you see the familiar world through a completely original lens. Okay, I don't know how to feel about this one, because whilst I think it could be really well done if executed in the right way, there is a little part of me that is maybe worried that that the synopsis has been written in such a way to draw you in, and then just kind of, the book disappoints you. I feel like I've read something like that before, where the book's hyped up to be one funny thing, and then in practice that was just the hook to get you in, and actually really it just doesn't deliver on the same kind of humour that promises. I mean, I pulled it out of the jar, so it's going to get read. I will borrow that from the library though, just in case, so then I don't feel salty if I paid for it and I don't like it, because that does happen. Yeah, I mean, we'll give it a go. I might be very pleasantly surprised. I've obviously been sucked in by the synopsis at some point, because again, added it to the reading list. But we'll see if it delivers. Finally, we're on to the last book I pulled, which was Onyx and Ivory. Now, this is kind of what I suspected it was going to be. Yes, it's fantasy, more specifically romantasy. So that kind of leans into, the fact that I've been trying the genre more widely anyway, so maybe this is a pretty good pick for the month. I will probably have to space this out from carrying on with Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, just so I don't get too overwhelmed by too much of the same genre when that genre isn't always necessarily what I'd pick up anyway. So I'll split them up, but beyond that, I'm pretty happy to go with this one. So I'll recap the synopsis for you, and then we can have a quick chat. They call her Traitor Kate. It's a title Kate Brighton inherited from her father after he tried to assassinate the High King of Rhyme. Cast out of the nobility, Kate now works for the Royal Courier Service. Only the most skilled ride for the relay, and only the fastest survive. For when night falls, the drakes, deadly flightless dragons, come out to hunt. Fortunately, Kate has a secret edge. She's a wilder, born with forbidden magic that allows her to influence the minds of animals. And it's this magic that leads her to a caravan massacred by drakes in broad daylight. The only survivor, Corwin Tormain, the son of the king. Her first love, the boy she swore to forget after he condemned her father to death. With their paths once more entangled, Kate and Corwin must put the past behind them to face this new threat, and an even darker menace stirring in the kingdom. So that's kind of pretty much what I expected from the write-up. So we obviously have this kind of romantic conflict, a lot of kind of family issues going on, and dragons. Dragons are always a win. So actually I'm looking forward to trying that. As much as I would say that book is the least likely maybe for me to pick up, I obviously wanted to push myself and push the boat out there, and that is still the case, given I'm giving romantasy a little bit more of a try in 2026 than I ever have before. So we'll see how that goes. That's a solid 500 pager, so again, not insignificant, but also like a good enough length, I think, for fantasy, where you can get into the kind of like overall world building and stuff like that, but not get too bogged down in any detail, and allow the action to unfold. So I'm hoping that's going to be kind of a nice balance in terms of length, and we'll just have to give it a try. My TBR is a substantial length, both in terms of the number of books I'm picking up, but also the page count. So I will pick these books up over different formats to help myself get through them. So it'll be a mix of physical, whether that's ones I own already, or library loans, digital, and also audiobooks. Like, I don't understand why people sleep on audiobooks. They're a great way to read when you can't sit down and traditionally read. So I personally make use of them. I get through probably a couple of months, I would say, on average. So like, make it work for you guys, honestly. That is my reading list for April. Have you read any of the books I feature in today's list? If you've read any of these books already, I would love for you to drop a note in the comments telling me exactly what you liked or disliked about them. I love a bookish conversation, so don't be afraid to tell me what you think. Until next time, I hope you have a pleasant rest of your day, and I will be back to update you on my progress with these reads in due course. Until then, bye for now.